Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you guys for joining our webinar today. Going to be focused around AI. Um, get this rolling real quick. A quick agenda is going to be, we'll meet our panelists. We're going to do a quick introduction to XenTegra for those of you who are not familiar with XenTegra, and then we're going to jump into the meat and potatoes of this around AI and how it doesn't have to be hard. Our panelists today, so I will be your host, Fred Reynolds. I am the president of Modern Apps here at XenTegra. I'll talk a little bit more around what Modern Apps encompasses, but the main thing for today it encompasses is AI. With me today, we have a friend, our partner, our colleague, Brett Fletcham. Brett, how are you doing today?
Terrific. Thanks for having me, Fred. And we missed you out at HIMSS this week out in Las Vegas with our healthcare customers.
Of course, yeah. No, I was at HIMSS last year. I do miss being there this year, so I'm getting all my things lined up and ready for knowledge back in Vegas. So it's funny how all the conferences now seem to be in Vegas, isn't it, Brett?
It is. It is. It's
Perfect.
not a bad place to have them, though.
No, it's kind of the biggest place to hold everything. So, Brett, I'm really excited to have you here. I'm really excited to hear all the good things that you're doing around AI. And I'm sure that those that have attended today and those that will go back and watch this will learn a lot. So, if you, Brett, would just give me a couple of minutes, I want to make sure everyone knows a little bit about who XenTegra is and why it matters. XenTegra was founded by Andy Whiteside. He's the founder and CEO. And it was born out of the need for customer enablement and true partnership. I've come to XenTegra a couple of years ago and truly for the fact that XenTegra as a partner is a lot more than just trying to partner with the vendor, partner with our customers. It is partner with everyone and combined and making sure we educate and we spend time together. And it's not just a transactional body of work, which is what I really like about this. When we talk about partnership, it is about partnering together to solve issues. We are global. We have nearshore, offshore, onshore resources. So we are a global organization to help with those needs. Our mission is to engage, listen, deliver appropriate enterprise technologies to our clients of all sizes, enterprise down to the smallest SMB customers. Everyone struggles with some areas of technology, and we're here to help and help deliver solutions that meet your business needs. We consider ourselves VAR 2.0, which I really like. Our Andy Whiteside talks about a lot. What makes us different is to break the mold of a traditional VAR, not just being transactional. We focus on what makes you successful, and that we're more than just a vendor. We strive to be a real partner, and that means working with our partners, working with you as clients, and making sure that we can all get to that success together. One thing I do love about being here at XenTegra, you'll see in addition to webinars and podcasts, we do a lot of live person events, which really allows us to get out, get in the community, meet people where they are in the different cities, bring along the different partners like Brett. I know Brett's on the West Coast, but he comes to the East Coast a lot, and we do events together. Brett, what did we do a couple of weeks ago? We were playing golf together, so at a Drive Shack event. So we do a lot of events like that, so we can have some connections more than just having work talk all the time. So try to build those relationships. But we deliver a lot of content, a lot of knowledge sharing through podcasts, through these webinars, and through just working with our clients day in, day out. I do run a modern application, which includes like Salesforce, ServiceNow, AI, UCCC. So many technologies falls under modern applications, but do want you to know here at XenTegra, we have a lot of other practice leaders. We have a full managed services offering hosted and services alike across the board, security, networking, data, modern data center, modern workspace, and SMB focus. So we have practice leaders that can help you solve any issues of where you are. We do that through a lot of different things. We provide resale, consulting services, managed services, blocks of hours, SOWs, you name it. We can basically fit the bill because we're a privately owned company. We really can do what we need to do to solve our customers' issues across all the disciplines. Really, in my opinion, what's across the technology stack, we have resources to help you solve for that. So that's a little bit about XenTegra. Just want to make sure you know who we are. We're more than just one thing, but we do everything very well. So at this time, I do want to hand it over to Brett. And Brett, we can now get going with what everybody came here to enjoy and listen to is a focus on AI. How can you make this easy for us to deploy and not make it so scary? That would be a question for you.
Yeah, and we're going to spend the next half hour to 40 minutes talking about exactly that. So let me put some slides up here and get going. Does that look like it's showing up properly, Fred?
Not in full screen, so just go to presentation mode.
Yep. Let me do that. Give me one sec. Here we go. Perfect. How's
You're
that?
good. You're perfect.
All right, great. Hey, I'll just add a little color about who I am. My name's Brett Flincham, CEO of Stellar. As Fred mentioned, we are an AI services company. I want to tag along on what Fred said about XenTegra. I will say, very unique partner here. You folks that are on the call that are customers and/or prospects, they're the best partner that I know. That Fred, when you talk about the community you guys build, I mean, nobody does that. And I think it's a level of care about customers that's unique and special. And it's why I want to be an important partner for you and work with you. And I'm grateful for that. So thank you. Just really quickly, Fred mentioned that I live on the West Coast. My company's actually based in Indianapolis in the Midwest. We do a lot of work across the whole country. We do a lot of work very specifically focused in the Midwest, also do a lot in the Southeast and Northeast. So as Fred said, I spend a lot of time traveling and we're all around the place. I've been working for sort of technology-based companies in the Bay Area for 30 years. A lot of early, what's now commonly called robotic process automation, but just various aspects of automation technology underneath that. Last 10 years, I've been working in AI, machine learning, and actually generative AI really before it even had that naming convention. So I've been pretty deep in this, and so has our team. By the way, we have a wonderful team. Most of the team is based in Indianapolis and Chicago with some folks like me on the West Coast, and we've got some other folks, scattered around the country, but just a wonderful team of expertise. I want to start with this kind of summarizes everything we're going to talk about, and it'll set the stage for us. By the way, I hate presentations where you're kind of moving from one thing to the next and you don't know where you're going. So I like to say, here's where we're going. First, an important thing, and of course, the theme of the webinar is at Stellar, we believe AI doesn't need to be hard. There's so much going on. There's so much noise. We'll talk about that a little bit. But there's actually really easy ways to implement, to get started, and to make a big difference for your business. And that's what we'll spend time on. To frame getting started, I like to talk about the market itself, and everybody knows this, and knows all. We see it on television all the time, but I think getting a grounded in the magnitude of what's happening is really important. So we'll do that. We'll talk about a bit about the pace of things, right? How quickly the technology is changing. We use this word, it's ridiculous. It is just unprecedented, and it's amazing and so transformative. And then we'll really focus on how your business use cases can drive your execution and implementation and how to get started easily. And we'll talk about that in some detail. We also really drive this message that AI is a journey and not the destination. There's a process, and you'll hear me use this word a lot today about participating in this transformation. And that's what we really want to encourage you guys to do, and encourage all of our customers and prospects to do, is not to sit on the sidelines, but actually participate in smart, thoughtful ways. We also just really drive a message that humans are super important and AI can be so scary. And if you get caught up in the news and the newspapers or television, it can be a little intimidating. But really, we think what's important about AI is enabling humans to do their jobs better, be more effective. And we think the employees and people that are leveraging AI, are going to be your best employees. So we'll talk about how we enable them. And then lastly, basically training tools, all of the other components of infrastructure at your company, change management, all those things are really crucial for successful outcomes. It's not just dumping AI into your environment and then not knowing where to go, where to start, how to really leverage it. And we recognize, by the way, it's Integra and it's Stellar, that unless your users are actively using those tools and it's making a meaningful difference for you, the fact that you have the tool isn't the answer, right? It's making it useful. And so we work hard at that and are committed to that. So just to lean into the hype a second, I mean, you can't turn on the TV or read an article without the word AI coming up all the time. And it's just so noisy, and it can be so confusing. And everybody I think's got exposure to the Gartner hype cycle, and I do think it's a meaningful sort of concept of what's happening right now. We've got this technology trigger, which is the innovation of generative AI, which really launched in late 2022, which is amazing, right? Isn't it? Can you imagine that we just saw that late 2022, and how much we see, how many applications have AI embedded in it, how much noise? I mean, if you watch the Super Bowl, or, we got the NCAA tournament coming up, and you're going to see AI, AI, AI. And the risk of that is this notion of inflated expectations, a little bit of that intimidation and fear that we mentioned. And sometimes if you get overwhelmed and all of that, the common things that happen in the technology life cycle is you sort of emerge into this trough of disillusionment, and you get sort of discouraged with things. One of the examples I'll use really quickly is, I don't know if this was actually in the fall of last year, but Google Gemini did an ad where they had a dad helping his daughter basically write a fan letter to someone, and was using generative AI to write that fan letter. And it got enormous pushback right out in the broader community, because they're taking something that's such an intimate family experience and handing that over to AI. And Google actually had to pull that ad, right? They quit distributing that ad. And those are the things that they confuse what AI is really all about, and what's possible, and how we leverage it productively. But what I really like to say about XenTegra and Stellar is that we work on that productivity plateau. And back to the right, we believe AI doesn't need to be hard. We build real AI solutions, and we drive really meaningful business outcomes. And we have I'll share with you at the end of this a couple of sort of customer results, impacts, and outcomes that they're mind blowing. They're just amazing, and we take so much pride in that. So I hate when all the hype sort of doesn't contribute to those positive outcomes.
Yeah.
Just
Hey,
to lean in.
Brett, before you
Yeah,
keep going, I
Fred.
want to say a couple things real quick. So first of all, you're absolutely right. I think that's the one thing I love about so far, seeing the work, starting the work with some of our clients, and how you've come in and eased our mind on some of that, because everybody has that little nervousness about how do I even get started? And I see this hype and they make it nervous, or what access to data will people have, or what access to what data do I use? So there's so much uncertainties out there. So I love how you've been approaching our clients to make them feel at ease and understand that it really doesn't have to be hard, and let's just focus on what you're trying to solve. And then other thing I want to say is to the audience here is that we will open this up for question and answers when Brett finishes going through the deck that he has. I see maybe a couple maybe coming in. We will give you a chance to ask questions at the end. Hopefully, a lot of them may be answered as we're doing the presentation. So maybe hold off a little bit, let Brett get through a couple more slides, and we'll make this interactive. But once we get through some of the content we have here, we'll open it up and have a little dialogue at the end. So again, thank you, Brett. You can continue.
Sure thing. Thanks, Fred. Um, first thing, just on the market scope and size. So today the market's about $750 billion. What's amazing is it's up over $200 billion since 2023. By the way, that's really just about a year, right? We're early 2025, so it's a $200 billion increase in the market size in that period of time, which is just unprecedented. And then, and by the way, this data is a combination. On the left is McKinsey data, and on the right is Bloomberg IDC data. The Bloomberg IDC data I really love, because it provides 10 of what they researched were the top 10 Gen AI use cases. And what I take a lot of pride in at Stellar, and we do, is that we have actually built 9 out of 10 of these use cases. And you know, I kind of back to this notion of hype. While everybody else is sort of talking about AI, we're actually building real and meaningful solutions, and we live it every day. And the one of these that we haven't built, by the way, is the code and SQL generation component down there. And it's because there's great solutions. We leverage those tools every day, right? But we just don't need to build those tools. But we've basically built all of these high profile use cases in some form or some capacity. And we just take a lot of pride, and we've learned so much doing this over the last couple of years.
And Brett, you've done a lot of that with not just building some mega solution for a lot of the customers, right? You came in and started in a very scoped project, and then it moves on from there. So it doesn't have to be some grand big AI solution off the bat. It can be a particular use case that they have, right?
So we're going to really dig into that, Fred, but it's really important because, yeah, you don't have to spend, you know, $500,000 to get started, right? You can take a small project, introduce it, and by the way, even on a small kind of pilot project, Fred, you can get real actual outcomes out of that, right? Which is just, I mean, it's amazing. So I think there's easy ways to start, and that's what we'll definitely spend some time on. The other thing on the market is just, you know, the tremendous growth over time that's projected, right? Where we're going from, oops, I wasn't going to go that fast. We're going from this, you know, $750 billion to almost $3 trillion over the next 10 years. And by the way, if you carry it out to 2040, which I didn't put on this slide, it's amazing. I've research this data. If you take every all the money spent for space exploration and all the innovations happening in space right now, if you take all of the innovations in autonomous vehicles and cars, and if you take all of the investment and growth projected from new sources of power, particularly nuclear power, which is really over the next 10, 15 years going to be, those are the three super high emerging categories. If you put all of them together, they're about half of what's projected the growth in AI. So I mean, just the magnitude of what's happening is unbelievable. Just quickly, this gives you kind of the annual change over time, but you're adding around 100 billion to 200 billion over the next 4 or 5 years every single year in investment in AI solutions. That number, if you go out to 2040, goes to almost $500 billion a year. I mean, it just keeps building, it keeps adding. And then just to elaborate on industry specific data. Right now, AI in the healthcare market's about $20 billion. I mentioned that I'm at the HIMSS conference now. It's going to almost 40 billion by 2020, by the end of this year, effectively. Over this decade, so over the next 5 years, there's a 17 times increase in the spending that healthcare companies are going to do on AI. 17x. Can you imagine that in a 5 year period? AI in manufacturing is growing at almost 50% on a annual growth rate. Amazing, going from $3 billion this year to 20 billion by 2028. And financial services is growing at over 30% annual growth, going from, you know, just under 40 billion now to 190 billion by the end of this decade. So
So Brett, that was a great slide considering one of the questions came in as, how can XenTegra, Stellar help in these particular verticals, right? So how do we help these type verticals leverage AI? You see it's coming, the growth's going to be there. So I'm sure you're going to touch on it, but I just want to make sure I brought that out because it was a question asked already.
it's super important, by the way. And I'll say this one part, and then you know, happy to kind of feel some discussion at the end about it. You know, I always say AI is a horizontal platform, right? It's industry agnostic, it's functionally agnostic, meaning marketing can use it, engineering can use it, HR can use it, sales and marketing can use it, right? So it's a horizontal platform. But what's really important is with Stellar and with the partnership with XenTegra is actually our local knowledge and capabilities in these verticals, right? It's incredibly important because even though the platform's horizontal, if you don't know the data sets, if you don't know the key applications that are being used and integration across those applications, it's so that vertical knowledge is very, very important. And it's a wonderful thing, Fred, about the partnership with Integra because we span a lot of expertise here. These are three big ones. We're doing stuff together, by the way, in legal, in compliance, in banking and financial services, in insurance, by the way. So, having vertical expertise does matter despite the platform's horizontal.
So, bro, I think it's that in addition to the fact that you've been doing this for a long time. We have a lot of people within Integra that's been doing it and applying it in their technologies, whether it be in Microsoft or ServiceNow, there's a lot of the other solutions and products have their AI capability. The good thing is you expand across that, you utilize those as well, meaning that in each one of these areas, you have use cases, you have experience, you have development within them. So, how can we help? We've been there. And just like, I spend a lot of time in ServiceNow, talking about ServiceNow, selling ServiceNow. And with that, what makes us really applicable there is because I have so much interactions every day around that. It makes it easy to say what this customer is doing. You're the same way in AI. You're having these conversations daily with everybody in these verticals. You take from there, you learn from their experiences. You're able to pass that to the next people. I think that's why you make it so easy for people to get started because you make it less threatening to get in there and do it. So.
Well, we'll keep learning about that, but thank you. I think those are great comments. I'm kind of wrapping up this sort of speed of change and market piece, but I think this slide is amazing. One of my team members, Brendan Sullivan, put this together, and I just love this. But if you think about the rapid growth, and all we're doing here is using Chat GPT as a proxy for the industry, right? So never mind all of the other large language models and generative AI capabilities, whether it's Gemini, whether it's Anthropic, whether it's all the stuff Meta's doing, whether it's Copilot, right? Just Chat GPT. But just think about this. They got to 1 million users in the first 5 days after they launched. They got to 100 million users. I'm going to move your picture. The camera there was blocking my screen there.
That's got to
They
be
got to
great.
100 million users. Yeah, yeah. 100 million users in just 4 months after launch. Right now, and this is, I looked this up this morning because I just wanted to validate this. I have on this slide, they're doing 400 million active users per month. I looked it up this morning. They're doing 400 million active users per week right now, right?
Wow.
So if you think about that compared to other industries, it took 7 years for the internet to get to 100 million users. I mean, think how transformative the internet is. And keep in mind, again, I just want to emphasize this is Chat GPT only. This is not the whole industry, right? So it took the internet, 7 years to get there. And then you look at an impact, a tool that's so widely distributed and successful. Fred, you were mentioning ServiceNow. I just happened to use a Salesforce example, but 25 years after launch, right? They have 25 million active users per month, 200,000 customers, 175 countries. So, you put this transformation of Gen AI with respect to these prior technology transformations, it just lets you know how big and meaningful this is.
Crazy, man.
Um, let's see. Um, so all of this noise, all of this hype, all of this stuff, yes, but the number one goal for CEOs in 2025 is innovation with AI. And by the way, I would expect this to be the same thing for the next 5 or 6 years, right? I think this will continue to be number one on the list. So there's real, pressure to integrate AI and to get started with AI, which is again what we'll talk about. But let's also talk about the challenge, right? So there's all these tools, and I've just named a whole bunch of them, right? And how they're growing. the key thing is taking those tools and how do I get to high value business outcomes on the other side of these gaps and hurdles, right? And the truth is that those tools and capabilities, it's very, very challenging to get them executed inside a business in a secure environment with scale to achieve real business outcomes without a trusted partner. And again, this is where a little bit of the, it sounds sort of salesy, but I think Fred and I really believe businesses need a trusted partner to one, accelerate deployment, make it cost effective, not go down the wrong rabbit holes. What are the challenges to get there? There's resource and knowledge scarcity. There's a tremendous pace of change. And so, Fred, to your point earlier, just building every day and working with us every day and talking to customers every day and meeting with Google every day and meeting with Microsoft every day and meeting with OpenAI and knowing what's happening and what's available and how to best integrate that for meaningful change. I mean, I just think living it every day is a really important thing. There's a lot we'll talk about briefly in a minute on AI governance, data readiness, all of these kind of obstacles. And I think it's, that's the vision that we've built our company on. And I think, by the way, it creates value for customers because we can help them move so fast, which is what, helps them realize these business outcomes. Um, this slide, I think, is really, really important. This is one I would encourage you to kind of soak in and think about. This actually came from one of our customers. He verbally was talking to us about how he views AI, and he actually mentioned it in terms of three dimensions of AI. And I thought it was incredibly insightful, and we kind of expanded it into four dimensions of AI. But this is, I think it's important for you all to think about, and this is where we help customers execute, which is, on the left side of this, you've got this notion of foundational models, the more broadly distributed capabilities from Copilot, OpenAI, Gemini, Anthropic, Meta, all of the usual suspects. And one of the things I say is those applications have tremendous value, and everyone should be using them in some form, in some capacity. Some common things that are used is obviously is cleaning up, messaging on emails, writing blogs. There's data that says there's an 83% reduction in time in what marketing teams are spending on blog creation, which is amazing. Something like job descriptions, amazing use case for those capabilities. Then you've got point solutions where you've got very specific applications that are addressing a very specific process, whether it's in marketing, things like SEO optimization, whether it's a financial application and analysis, whether it's customer service and analytics, right? So there's the notion of point solutions. And I think understanding what's the best time to choose a point solution, when can you leverage other kind of dimensions across this sort of scale that's in front of us. Then the third dimension, and Fred, you were mentioning ServiceNow. All of the big platforms and applications are doing an amazing job integrating AI into their platforms. And they're super valuable and important. So Salesforce, ServiceNow, SAP, all of them have, and we use the term application embedded AI, and they're incredibly important. What we do is we kind of work across all of those dimensions. One of the things, and we'll do some future webinars on this topic alone. One of the things I really believe is where you unlock real business value. It's not chat bots and this sort of pure generative AI that we hear so much about. What we do is work at the intersection of generative AI, at traditional AI, at more traditional machine learning, at the intersection of structured data and unstructured data, and at the intersection of integrating your applications so that you're leveraging AI over time across the enterprise. To Fred's point, the important thing is you don't have to start with enterprise-wide applications, but you start with small projects, small data integrations, and we'll get to that in just a second. But that's what we do is tailored business solutions. We advise and consult across these dimensions. We educate across these dimensions, and we help you deploy across these dimensions. Um, the other key thing, and I think I said this earlier, that you'll hear me say it a couple of quick times here, but let's participate in this transformation. I think if you sort of think, hey, I'm going to sit on the sidelines and let this mature, I think that you kind of miss an opportunity. Number one, your competitors can get a lot of strategic advantage by implementing fast. Number two, we've got to educate and mature individual organizations and your teams. And so by participating, you get to kind of start that journey of integrating AI. And I just put this quote here. It's kind of a provocative quote by Peter Diamandis. He's a very well-known author, entrepreneur, futurist. But his quote is, by the end of the decade, there'll be two kinds of companies: those who fully utilize AI and those who are out of business. I think that's a little scary and not 100% accurate, but I think the concept of how much change is going to happen, participate, stay ahead of your competitors, at least be competing out there with your competitors, you're going to be a lot healthier, at the end of the decade. What do we believe? We believe AI doesn't have to be hard. We take a lot of pride in building real AI solutions. We build applications. We help with machine learning, modeling, got a rich data science practice, and we help with your technology and business readiness stack. Both us and XenTegra, by the way, really help you on your infrastructure needs, your data needs. We're Microsoft partners, Snowflake partners. You guys know the breadth of XenTegra partnerships. So we help be sure you've got a stack that supports meaningful use of AI. We live in keeping humans at the center of everything we do, and we live in a space of focusing on ethical and responsible AI. And I really do. It's super important to me. Fred, you were talking about this Integra sense of community. It's important to all of us to be leaders of good in responsible and ethical AI, and we work super hard at that, and we help ensure you're executing in that way. So now let's get to the meat. Where do we start?
Hey,
This
Brett,
is real.
can you back up
Yeah,
one real quick, just real quick,
yeah,
because you've throwing a lot of good stuff out there. I just want to at least ask this one question. I mean, you talk about humans being at the center of some of the AI transformation. Can you give maybe one example of like how you've kept the humans in the middle of this AI work that you've done? Because I think that's one of the
sure.
things that I hear when I'm out hanging out with friends and stuff. They're always like, "Well, AI is going to replace humans." I'm like, "AI is not going to replace humans," but that's a sense of what people have. So maybe take a moment and just talk about a project that you led where humans still stay in the center of it.
Yeah, I have a great one, and at the end I'm going to show the results from this one, but I'll describe it really quickly. We had a quality team at a company that's a big global company. They have to do regulatory reporting based on kind of subsequent analysis of problems. They have to report these problems, and they projected this team of 6 or 8 people to have to spend months kind of basically absorbing a backlog that they'd gotten behind in regulatory reporting, doing a lot of analysis of these customer service problems. We applied an AI solution. We solved what they thought were going to be months of work for a team of people to kind of resolving that problem. And this sounds crazy, but in an afternoon. Well, now you've freed up 6 or 8 people. What matters then? Then what really matters is, can those 6 or 8 people now go and work with their product team on what the failures in those products were, right? That are generating those errors and those customer problems. Can they work with their supply chain and component parts makers to resolve those issues so that they reduce the inbound, problems, the inbound customer calls, and the failures on site on these globally distributed products? Can they determine, are there training errors out there, either in machine maintenance of these machines that are distributed, So now you can refocus those people to actually go solve meaningful problems. And by the way, their job satisfaction, Fred, goes through the roof because they don't want to sit and read. In this particular case, they were backlogged 100,000 incidences. They don't want to go read 100,000 incidents, diagnose all those problems. They actually want to go fix the problems. So I'll pause there, Fred. Does that
No,
resonate?
of course, because I think that's the thing, right? How do you use this AI to go really deep into finding out what the issues are very quickly? You just said you did that kind of in the afternoon, maybe it's a day. It would have taken them probably months to pull out the results of that. By the time they went to act on that, they're probably already into their second release, third release of something. And so I can see from a manufacturing standpoint or any product development, this is huge because now you get
Right.
the results back instantaneously and you're able to go act on those. So those humans are actually going to do the job that they need to do without the time spent trying to see what the problems are, right?
Yes, exactly. And I'm going to briefly touch on another use case in a second. It's a legal use case that I think is just super interesting because it's another one where you take out a bunch of mundane work. You really allow the partners at a law firm to focus on their real value add versus super mundane work. So there's just so many important examples of why humans matter. I'll
Okay.
try to hit these quickly, but I will say these are really important on how to get started. When you're thinking about how to get started, there's some key considerations. The first one is do you have some obvious areas of interest where you think AI could make a difference for you? And if you already have some of those in mind, we are really good in our discovery processes with you is to help you fully identify, validate that those are actually meaningful opportunities, and kind of structure how do you want to pilot or launch an approach to solve those problems in the most cost effective way. So some customers in their journey already have those ideas. Some don't, by the way. And if you don't, if you go to the next to the right, I'm working kind of left to right at the top of this screen. Some folks actually want to get more education on what's possible. They want to raise the AI IQ of their team. That can be their functional team, it can be the IT team, it can be the sales team, it can be the marketing team, it can be the executive team. But sometimes just having a workshop, understanding how other people in your industry are leveraging AI, getting understanding what's possible, also seeing what people outside of your industry are doing, because a lot of times that triggers thoughts. So there's interesting things we do as a collective team, both us and XenTegra, to raise your awareness of what's possible. We execute some workshops and things that I'll show you about in a second. um, Other key consideration, does your infrastructure stack support AI solutions? Are you on-prem, are you cloud, or you're hybrid? My Fred, back to making it easy. My answer is it doesn't matter which of those you're on. You can actually execute AI across any of those sort of infrastructure environments, but you have to be thoughtful. You have to have some experience on how to best do that. You have to match the AI solution and approach with the type of infrastructure you're on. And by the way, if you're thinking about moving to the cloud from on-prem, for example, or if you're actually moving some really high secure information, you want to move back on-prem and you want a hybrid environment, having those considerations in approach is really important to how you're preparing for AI implementation in the future, all things that we spend our days doing every day. Along the notion of your infrastructure stack is what's your data stack? Do you have a lot of data silos? Do you have an integrated data warehouse or data platform? Again, it doesn't matter what your answer is here. Whichever the answer is, there's AI solutions we can help you implement and execute. But understanding that and matching the right AI solution is really critical to your decision making and to things you need to be thinking about. Do you have a data governance plan? Is that relevant to your business? Do you have AI policies? Sometimes that sounds really bureaucratic and complicated, but really even the smallest businesses need to have, a good understanding of what's their data governance strategy. If you have data governance strategies in place already, that's a wonderful starting point. Then all you got to do is incorporate your AI management and security practices into those governance strategies. If you don't have those well documented, it's actually an easy, not a big intimidating process, but easy and important to do. So those are all things we help customers with. And then to the second level on the right there, while AI implementation is really important. One of my team members, Zach Linder, always says this to customer, and he says it better than I'm going to be able to describe it here, which is when you're implementing AI, some portion of that solution is AI, right? Whether it's 30% of what you're implementing, whether it's 40 or 50% of what you're implementing. But a big part of what you're implementing is integration into your other systems, integration into your business processes, integrations into your data stack, which are kind of common IT practices, right? But they're super important that you apply them carefully and successfully to your AI deployment. So I think recognizing that and recognizing your whole infrastructure, data, and system stack's important. And then the last one on the bottom left is just training and change management, being committed to your employees actually leveraging the solutions and making a difference. And then I just finished this by emphasizing, while that sounds like a lot of stuff, it doesn't have to be hard. It's easy. We live this every day. We can help you consider each of these things, make decisions on each of these things, execute easily and efficiently. This
And
is a
Brett,
really, yeah,
real quick slide. Sorry, give you just a moment to catch your breath and hit that last slide 1 second.
yeah.
I was supposed to say, hearing you go through all that, right? That's a lot there, but I think it screamed to me of how consultative you guys are. You go into these practices and you're actually consulting them. I've seen you firsthand, even working with me as me being your client, of walking through some of the applications, the stack, what are we using, right? Having those discussions. That's where it becomes the walls break down. It's not intimidating at all because you know so much about these areas and you're looking at it from the start to the end. Having that training and change management at the end is very important because adoption is key to all these types of things you're going to introduce. So you think about that from the beginning of this, and that's why I think you've been so successful with your use cases of hitting the mark when you go to implement and deliver these things. So I just want to highlight the fact that you're very consultative around all these things, and that these conversations you're having, which I've witnessed several times, it encompasses all this in those conversations, which really helps to make it so it's not really hard.
Thank you. And I think the intersection with XenTegra is just super important too, because you guys live in the infrastructure and data space as well. And between both of our organizations, there's just so much value creation we're driving for customers. This is really, really important. And I'm gonna be quicker because I want to get through everything in about 5 minutes here. But the back to the journey, right? Fred, this is the whole notion you started with, which is you don't need to spend millions of dollars to get started. You can start with small projects. It can start with workshops, assessments, data readiness, and governance assessments. We love doing lunch and learns and workshops. And every time we do them, we get really, really wonderful feedback. People get very well educated and people get really enthused about what's possible. Most of our customers then follow that with a small landing project. You kind of scope it down where you limit data integrations, but you drive real value. So, whether it's $30,000, $25,000, $50,000, we'll scope it to the business needs, but immediately you can get meaningful value. You can integrate an AI solution into your business and you can get people benefiting, learning, and growing. Then, by the way, over time, it's back to you don't have to solve all your data problems. You don't have to solve all your infrastructure problems. But as you add other projects, as you scale those projects, you integrate more data, You continue to evolve your infra stack as needed, right? And it's a very, very incremental approach. Ultimately, you work to the far right of this, where you get to effectively an enterprise data platform and capability, where you've got multiple functions across your organization leveraging that platform, leveraging integrated data underneath that. And we'll spend whole webinars on this topic. But the key thing is it doesn't have to be hard, and you can start small and take small bites. You can participate, educate, and benefit. And then this just shows our AI assessment workshops, where we really focus on elevating AI IQ and leadership. We increase awareness in AI trends. We identify top priorities within your company for you, and we help you prioritize and determine what's most important for you. We do these for as many as a couple of hundred people to as few as 4 or 5 people. So we do these across all scopes and scales, and I think they're really important. I just put up here a taste of what are some of the typical first applications that we do for customers. We do sales and marketing assistance, customer service assistance. We're working on some interesting IT assistance with some XenTegra customers right now that are amazing. We do things where we do quality review and customer service interactions. We do some interesting work in compliance and reporting, and amazing things in kind of initial data classification. All of those are small projects we can implement at a small scale. By the way, we're not limited to those. Fred, to your point, we do a consultative discovery process to actually learn what's meaningful to you. But I wanted to give folks a taste of that. And then here's the important thing, and we're almost done, guys. Let me just give you a couple of examples. And I want to emphasize that each of these, none of these are big where people spent a gazillion dollars with us. These are small projects we launched early to get customers started and what they've meant for customers. So, one, we have an assembly and distribution business. It's an amazing business, an early stage startup growing really fast. We did a bunch of RPA and AI overlay on top of their RPA solution. They've grown 6x without hiring new employees, which is absolutely amazing. They had a manually intensive back end. We introduced some automation, some AI intelligence, and they've been able to grow 6x without hiring new employees, and they're continuing to grow. We have this next one is the one I mentioned, Fred, when you asked me for an example, this data classification and quality review, where a customer had a team of people, they were projecting 8 weeks plus of work, and we did all of that work effectively in a day, and they're able over time to redeploy those people to actually solving the root cause of the quality problems, product defects, and customer complaints. It's just transformative and amazing. I mentioned I was going to give a legal use case, and I won't go into detail about this, but there was basically this is a super large firm with lots of attorneys. They had oftentimes when they were doing transactions on big multi-tenant facilities with a host of complex lease agreements, they long and short of it is it actually required partner review of these lease agreements and contracts because there was so much nuance in the language. And what's important about this use case is we've been able to do machine learning, what I would call similarity search, for a long time, which is, show me everywhere there's an interest rate. I want to know where interest rates are above 7% or whatever those kind of machine learning algorithms are. Those are solvable problems for a long time. The part that wasn't solvable until generative AI is actually absorbing the content, reading the document, and picking up the nuances in the language that introduce new risks that they required a partner to review. And we've been able to do that, basically identify high risk areas. Fred, to your point of keeping humans in the loop, then we give the partner a much reduced summary of where the high risk things are. So the partner, instead of reading hundreds of pages, is reading 2 pages, and then we're identifying where they need to go look in the document to catch those key language components. And then we're doing a lot with Vision AI. And this one is just a beautiful use case where we're absorbing mechanical drawings. We're turning that into structured data and an inventory of plans, which this company never had before. We're facilitating reuse of products that they've never been able to do before without designing new products. So just transformative outcomes. And Fred, we're going to do these webinars monthly, and some of these webinars will go into some depth on each of these use cases. So I look forward to that. And then this is the last slide. We've covered this, but I just like to leave with keeping humans at the center. It's really important to us. And we help companies participate. We help you use AI as an enabler and a supporter for your business. We help you to get competitive advantage, and we want to make it a healthy experience for all your employees, and we really care about that. And Fred, I will leave it at that.
Well, Brett, that was awesome. That was so much good information. I love the use cases. I guarantee we could probably just go on and on about different use cases, and we'll set something up for that, Brett. We'll keep moving for it. I do have one more thing for you, though, real quick. When I have some conversations just starting with people around AI, they kind of make the case that they're not ready for it. Our company is not ready for it. I mean, I know big enterprise the other day said we're not ready for AI. So I hear this readiness around AI. So what does that really mean to you? And when they say, "Hey, we're not ready for AI," I mean, how do you react to that?
Yeah. But a common thing, right, that we hear from customers all the time. And um, this is the first time I've said this, so I'll say it this way. It's kind of like I remember when I was getting married, and somebody, and you kind of feel like you're never ready to get married, but you kind of gotta bite it off. And I will say I've been married for 30 years now. So, that's the journey. But I think the key thing is you're probably more, and to use the marriage example, you're probably more ready than you think you are. And you don't have to have, like a lot of times, I mean, in fact, the big consulting companies, Fred, will come in and say, hey, you need an integrated data warehouse, and we've got to do a big cloud migration. We got to do a big warehouse deployment. We've got to do all of these things. We can kind of work with you on where you are in your journey. If you've got data silos, we can focus on data that's specific to an application or use case where you can start getting value, kind of limit your exposure there. So there's easy ways to buy it off and get started. Your data stack and your infrastructure stack is really important, but there's ways to leverage what you have, what you've already invested in, not have to make new investments. So,
That's great. Perfect. All right. Well, Brett, thank you for today. I don't know if there's any questions, last questions. I know some people were asking for the deck. We'll get that out. Um, I'll hold for 1 second. And if there's no other questions, I'm going to wrap it up. Couple of seconds. Brett, thanks again. Love hanging out with you. So thanks everyone
all
for
right.
joining. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining.